Hello, friends, and let's get started.
Alex drove out of the parking lot of the office building and immediately got stuck in traffic. The honking horns, the irritated drivers, the senseless lane changes. It was all painfully familiar. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, running through his to-do list in his head. He had to stop at the store, get something for dinner, maybe finally buy those damn light bulbs that Lauren had been asking for a week. Alex took a deep breath. His head was full of nonsense, but there was even something pleasant about it. The ordinariness, the routine, the predictability. At least, that's what he thought. He turned sharply onto a side street, determined to avoid the congestion. The road was almost empty, and Alex allowed himself to speed up a little. A few minutes later, he was already turning onto a street, automatically slowing down. The houses were lined up in a row, identical facades, neat lawns. Tranquility, stability. His house was the third from the corner. He pulled closer, about to park, but something made him hit the brakes hard. Lauren's car. A black Audi parked right in the driveway. It was parked as usual, a little to the side, neatly, as if Lauren had calculated in advance how her parking lot would look from the outside. Except Lauren shouldn't be here. Alex leaned forward slowly, examining the car. Lauren should be at work. They'd spoken on the phone just an hour ago, and she complained about being swamped with reports. "I'm in the office all day. I won't even go out for lunch," she said confidently. But here was her car, stationary, with the windows closed. Alex felt a slight tingle in the back of his neck. Maybe she'd stopped home for something, forgot her ID, or felt sick. Excuses swirled in his head, but none of them explained the main thing. Why hadn't she told him she was home? He turned off the engine and remained sitting in the car. It felt like he was watching his own house from the outside, like an outsider. Everything looked normal. The manicured flower bed under the window, the curtains moved, the slight movement of branches on the tree behind the house. But something was wrong. Alex didn't immediately realize what it was, but after a couple of seconds his gaze locked on the door. It was ajar. Alex slowly reached for the handle of his car door, but he was in no hurry to get out. Suddenly, he felt a strange reluctance to go inside. This was his home, his territory, his space. And suddenly it felt foreign. He forced himself to take a deep breath to calm himself down. This was ridiculous. Lauren could have just run home for a little something, or left and forgot to lock up behind her. He pushed open the car door and climbed out, feeling the tension pulling at the muscles in his shoulders. A few steps down the driveway, slowly, silently. Stopped in front of the porch and listened. It was empty inside. Or did he think it was? The door remained motionless, as if waiting for him to step forward. Alex reached out his hand, touched the warm metal handle. A little push, and the door yielded without the slightest resistance. He took a step inside and froze at the entrance, inhaling slowly, listening to his own sensations. It felt artificial, like the house hadn't had its windows open in a long time. He forced himself to move on. One step across the parquet floor, then another. Everything seemed the same, as it had always been. Lauren's coat hung on the coat rack. Her bag stood by the mirror in the hallway. But the farther he walked, the more something foreign, clammy, haunting rose in him. A feeling that he couldn't fully comprehend, but that settled tightly somewhere in his stomach, under his ribs. And then he heard voices. A quiet, muffled, but undeniably male voice. In the room upstairs. Alex stopped, held his breath, afraid that if he inhaled too loudly, he would scare someone away. But who he didn't know yet. He couldn't make out the words. They were indistinct, but there was a relaxation in them. A slight, carefree laziness in the intonation, not the way excited or frightened people usually spoke. No, this voice was confident. Comfortable. Confident because he knew nothing was threatening. And then, immediately, her laughter rang out in response. Lauren's laughter. Alex tensed, his heart clenched to a single point, as if something inside him had collapsed. He knew that laugh. Not just any laugh, but that particular shade of it. Not just happy or amused, but the kind she gave off when she was flirtatious, when she was winning at a word game, when she felt she was in control. It was a light, purring laugh, with a slightly extended ending, the laugh of a woman enjoying the moment. Alex took a step forward, slow, indistinct. Then another. Step by step, he walked up the stairs, his feet treading silently on the wooden planks. He walked on autopilot, not realizing himself, not fully believing what he was hearing. The voices continued, a little louder now. Conversation filled with playfulness, soft notes in Lauren's voice. "Are you serious?" A male voice said. "A little too close." "Well, how could I not?" The laughter, that laughter again. Alex froze. He recognized that voice, but his mind refused to accept reality. Alex took the last step and froze in the doorway. In front of him, in his own bedroom, on his own bed, sat Lauren. A sheet carelessly covered her legs, and her long blonde hair fell down her back in tangled strands. She didn't look flustered, didn't look caught off guard. Lauren slowly turned her head and met his gaze. Alex was not immediately able to comprehend everything he saw. It was as if his brain refused to perceive the whole picture, giving out separate fragments. A bare arm, a foreign odor, wrinkled sheets. The male figure beside her, the one sitting on the bed, sprawled out as if he felt like he owned the place, was Eric. The same Eric he'd been friends with for over a decade, who knew him better than anyone, who he trusted, who he spent weekends with, drinking beer, discussing work and life, who he allowed to be part of his family. Eric was shirtless, his tanned skin glistening in the faint light of the desk lamp. He stretched lazily, as if he didn't feel the least bit uncomfortable. Alex didn't immediately realize that no one had said a word. The silence pressed on his temples, and Lauren was the first to speak. "What are you doing here?" Her voice wasn't scared. It wasn't guilty. There was no remorse, no attempt to justify herself. Just annoyance, like he'd done something wrong, like he was the one who'd barged into someone else's life uninvited. Alex blinked. Everything around him still seemed unreal, as if he was watching a scene from someone else's life, from some cheap movie. He didn't answer. He just stood in the doorway, and the longer the silence lasted, the more the emptiness inside grew. Eric grinned, threw his leg over the edge of the bed, and scratched his neck lazily. "So, buddy," he said, "how was the trip?" Alex said nothing. His fingers involuntarily clenched into a fist, but not from anger. He felt something else, something that was hard to name. Maybe it was disgust. Maybe it was something deeper, scarier. Lauren rose abruptly from the bed, holding the sheet against his chest. "Jesus, Alex, seriously? You're just going to stand there and stare?" She sounded like he was interrupting something important, like he was interrupting her private time. He shifted his gaze from her to Eric. He was looking at him calmly, even challengingly, and that look made something inside him flip. Lauren snorted, her face contorted with contempt. "Oh, don't make a scene right now." Alex felt heat rush to his temples. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even trying to justify herself. Eric stretched lazily and grinned. "You know, Alex," he said, "you've always been too right. You make things too hard for yourself." He said it calmly, even condescendingly, and Alex suddenly realized that he was enjoying this moment. Lauren sighed heavily, as if his presence tired her more than everything that had happened. "What are you staring at us for? What are you trying to accomplish?" she asked. Alex felt his heart pounding in his chest, but it wasn't fear or pain. It was something new. Alex exhaled slowly. Eric was still smirking the same way. Lauren looked at him as if he was something insignificant, something that was interfering with her evening. Alex didn't remember exactly when he made the decision. His body moved on its own. He stepped forward, crossing the few feet that separated him from the bed, and struck. His fist met Eric's face with a thud, a dull, tight sound that sent a sharp, dull pain reverberating even in his own fingers. The blow was hard, sudden, and Eric, even as a tough guy, didn't have time to react. His head jerked sideways, his body lost its balance, and he fell backward, hitting his back against the headboard. Lauren cried out, but not from fear, not from shock, but from rage. "Are you crazy?" Her voice sounded sharp and irritated, as if he'd just broken her favorite vase or spilled coffee on her expensive bag. Eric groaned, bringing his hand to his face. He turned slowly to Alex, wiping his mouth with the back of his palm, and all he did was grin. "Well, there's definitely no turning back now, is there, buddy?" Alex stood there, breathing heavily, feeling the tension in his body not easing, but only flaring up with renewed vigor. Eric was in front of him, cocky, confident, still smirking despite the blood running down his lip. And Lauren, his wife, the woman he'd shared this life with, standing beside him, looking at him with disdain, as if he were an extra in his own bedroom. Something inside Alex snapped. "Have you lost your mind?" His voice came out louder than he expected, filling the room with echoes. "Are you calling me crazy?" Lauren flinched, but immediately straightened up with her chin raised arrogantly. "Exactly. Look at you. You're like a child who can't handle reality." Alex stepped forward, and before either of them could realize his intentions, he grabbed Eric by the neck and slammed his fist into his stomach. He bent in half, exhaling air with a painful wheeze. "What the fuck?" Eric muttered, but Alex didn't let him finish. His fist found his target again, this time in the cheekbone. Eric jerked back, stumbled, and collapsed to the floor, clutching his face. "Alex, stop!" Lauren shouted, rushing toward him, but he only raised his hand, glaring at her warningly. "Don't you dare!" he shouted, and she froze. Eric tried to get up, but Alex stepped forward and kicked him in the side, making him collapse to his knees again. "You thought you could come into my house?" Alex spoke loudly, clearly, so that every sound cut them both, crashed into their consciousness. "Lying in my bed? With my wife?" "Oh, come on," Eric wheezed, but Alex immediately punched him again, making him cough. "What is wrong with you?" Lauren screamed, grabbing her head. Alex slowly turned around to her. "What's wrong with me?" His voice was low, cold, soaked with rage, but not hysteria, not weakness. "Maybe the better question is, what's wrong with you?" Lauren opened her mouth, but Alex continued. "You're not even sorry. Not even a second. Not a gram of remorse." She swallowed, her eyes darting toward Eric, who was trying to come to his senses. It wasn't what you think it was," she started, but her voice sounded unconvincing. Alex shook his head. "No, it was exactly what I think it was." He shifted his gaze to Eric, who finally stood up, wiping the blood from his face. Eric grinned, but his eyes no longer had that confidence in them. He glanced at Lauren, and she, to his surprise, didn't seem too concerned about his condition. "Lauren?" he wheezed. "Go away," she said tiredly, not looking at him. Eric froze. "Are you serious?" She didn't answer, and there was more meaning in her silence than in any words. Eric whined, shook his head, and, holding his side, headed for the door. Alex watched him walk away, and with every step he felt something inside him grow cold. He slowly turned to his wife. "Now let's talk about you." Lauren crossed her arms over her chest. Her posture was more annoyed defiance than remorse. Her eyes darted between Alex and the door Eric had just left, but she quickly pulled herself together. "Come on, let's talk." Her voice was dry, detached. Alex looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. He was expecting anything, excuses, tears, hysterics. But nothing. Not a drop of regret. Just a bored look in her eyes, as if she was tiring of his presence. "You don't even pretend to be sorry, do you?" Lauren sighed heavily, as if he was actually tiring her more than the fact that her lover had just been beaten right in front of her eyes. "Alex, I'm not going to make drama. It happened. What now? Are you going to act like an adult, or are you going to continue this childish show?" Alex felt his fists clenching again, but he wasn't going to waste any more energy on anger. He suddenly realized that there was no point in arguing with a man who had long ago stopped respecting him. He turned around, pulled his cell phone out of his pocket, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Lauren was wary. Alex didn't answer. Stepping out into the hallway, he slammed the bedroom door behind him, leaving her there alone, and took a quick step downstairs. He sat down on the couch in the living room and stared at his phone. The screen glowed in his palm, reflecting his tense face. A deep inhale, an exhale. He opened his contacts, scrolled down the list, found the name he wanted. Jason, Lauren's boss. He knew the man serious, straightforward, hated messes. Jason held the company in an iron grip and didn't tolerate shoddy work. Lauren had always bragged that he trusted her. I wondered if he trusted her now. Alex pressed the call. The dial tone came, one after the other, long, lingering. "Yes?" He answered on the other end, his voice husky, slightly irritated, as if he distracted him from something important. Jason, hi, it's Alex. Alex? Surprise in his voice. Lauren's husband? Ex-husband, to be exact. Alex's voice was calm, but there was steel in that calmness. A short pause. What happened? I thought you might be interested to know what your irreplaceable employee was doing during working hours. Jason could be heard writing something down, probably on paper, an old-school habit. Excuse me? Explain. Alex grinned slightly. You know that Lauren went on regular business trips, right? Sure. She controlled some of our deals. Oh yes, she did. Alex gritted his teeth. The problem is, she wasn't running any of the deals. She was using the corporate accounts for her own entertainment, paying for hotels, restaurants, and her lover. Silence again. Tense, oppressive this time. Are you sure? I have proof. Alex quickly opened the photos, screenshots of her correspondence, bank statements he'd saved in advance when he'd sensed something wrong a month ago. He sent everything to Jason. See for yourself. He didn't hear anything for a couple seconds. Then there was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Oh, for fuck's sake, Jason muttered. He was flipping through files, and with each new flipping sound, Alex could feel the man realizing that Lauren had set him up. How long has this been going on? Jason's voice was hard. Long enough. She thought I wouldn't recognize Dash. He exhaled heavily. And then Alex heard something fall on the table with a clatter, probably a pen. Look, Alex, if half of this is true, she doesn't work for us anymore. Alex relaxed on the couch, feeling something like contentment spreading in his chest for the first time all evening. Great, he said calmly. Thanks for the information, Jason said, his voice no longer friendly. I'll look into it first thing tomorrow. Alex nodded, though Jason couldn't see it. No problem. He dropped the call and closed his eyes. One blow had been struck, but this was just the beginning. Alex sat on the couch, running through the next step in his head. The anger was no longer bubbling up inside him as uncontrollably as it had a few minutes ago, but it wasn't cooling down yet. He wasn't going to just turn around and walk away, leaving things the way they were. No, this was just the first act. He opened his contact list and scrolled down until he found the name he wanted. Tom. Eric's younger brother was the exact opposite of his older brother. Flashy, straightforward, abrupt. While Eric was always calculating and confident, as if he knew the world owed him a favor, Tom lived by emotion. If he was angry, he didn't hide it. If he hated, his hatred knew no bounds. Alex remembered what Eric had once said. Tom's too hot-headed. That's why he's always getting into trouble. Well, it looked like his older brother deserved to get in trouble today. Alex pressed the call. One dial tone. Second. 3. Hello? Came Tom's husky, slightly sleepy voice. Tom, it's Alex. Alex? There was an immediate look of bewilderment in the guy's voice. Hey man, are you okay? You're not the kind of guy who calls for nothing. Alex took a deep breath and said, We need to talk. Tom straightened up. You could hear it even in his tone. Shit, you sound like someone died. Not yet, Alex answered, and there was something in his voice that made the other end go silent. Okay, you're scaring me, Tom finally said. Talk already. Alex squeezed the phone in his palm. Are you still seeing Emily? Tom froze. Emily? Yeah, of course I am. Why would? Your brother's sleeping with her. Silence. Deafening, pressurized. Alex heard Tom draw in air slowly. You don't get it? Say it again. You heard it right. Tom was silent, and Alex could almost hear the pieces of the puzzle being put together in his head. How do you know? Tom's voice got lower, tenser. I just found your brother in my bed. With my wife. Alex let that hang in the air. And if you think he's only like that with me, believe me, you're no exception. Tom didn't answer right away. Is it true? I have proof. There was a muffled thud, like a fist smashing into a wall. I'll kill him. It's your choice, Alex answered calmly. Heavy breathing, the sound of footsteps. Where is he? I don't know, I kicked him out of my house 10 minutes ago. That bastard, Tom swore, and then abruptly hung up the phone. Alex looked at the screen. The call had ended. He leaned back on the couch, covered his eyes, and allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The dominoes had begun to fall. But it wasn't over yet. The phone rang sharply, piercingly, filling the silence of the bedroom, where the smell of betrayal still lingered. Lauren, still wrapped in the sheet, grabbed it nervously from her nightstand without even looking at the screen. Alex, sitting downstairs in the living room, heard the call and grinned. He knew what was about to happen. For a few seconds, there was a tense silence upstairs. Then, abruptly, "What?" Alex tilted his head to the side, listening. Footsteps, quick, nervous. Then Lauren's voice, muffled but filled with rage. "Jason, wait. What are you talking about?" Alex heard her get out of bed, heard the floor creak beneath her feet. "What kind of accusations? This is some kind of mistake." She was starting to panic. A couple more seconds, and there it was, a loud stomp up the stairs. Alex remained sitting on the couch, leg over leg, one elbow resting on the armrest, a bottle of water in his hand, which he hadn't even opened. He waited. Lauren appeared on the threshold of the living room, disheveled, eyes burning with anger. Her phone was pressed to her ear, but her gaze was fixed on him. "Jason, you know me? You can't just—" She paused, bit her lip sharply, then pulled the phone away and glared at him as if she wanted to burn a hole in the screen. "Hello?" She brought it to her ear again. "Hello?" Nothing. Just short beeps. Lauren slowly lowered the phone, staring at the screen. Then she lifted her head, her eyes darting to Alex. He didn't say a word, just stared. "It's you. It's because of you." She hissed it with such fury that if looks could kill, Alex would be on the floor by now. He allowed himself a slight chuckle. "What am I?" Lauren took a step forward, her fingers clenched into fists. "Don't play games with me, Alex. You're the one who leaked something to him." He raised his eyebrows as if he'd just remembered. "Oh, you mean your boss finding out where the company's money was going?" "Yeah, that was me." Lauren clenched her teeth, her fingers white with tension. You're just an asshole," she stammered, her breath hitching as if in physical pain. "You ruined my career." She stepped closer, but he didn't even move. "You have no idea what you just did." "Oh, I know exactly what I did." His voice was calm. "I see. You thought you could fool everyone around you, cover yourself with work, using the company as your personal ATM. But you know what the funny thing is? You don't even feel sorry for yourself." Lauren opened her mouth, but Alex continued. "Not for a second do you think about the fact that you're the one who screwed this up. No, you blame me." Lauren exhaled heavily, as if trying not to snap. "You're a sick man, Alex. You didn't just leave. You're trying to destroy me." He sighed and finally opened the bottle of water, took a small sip, then looked at her again. "No, Lauren, you're already destroyed." She stared at him, her eyes darting around, emotions shifting one after another. Anger, hatred, despair. And for the first time that day, for the first time in all these years, Alex saw fear in her eyes. And that was just the beginning. Alex picked up his phone again. This time he opened not the contact list, but the old correspondence. The ribbon of messages stretched down, back in time, to a place where another life had once existed, where Lauren was still his wife, and he was a man who trusted her blindly. He scrolled a little lower and found the name he wanted. Stephanie. Lauren and Stephanie were once inseparable. They spent entire days together, discussing everything from work to new fashion trends. But something happened between them a few months ago, and Lauren abruptly cut her friend out of her life. Alex didn't really go into details then. He just accepted his wife's version that Stephanie was always jealous and she's toxic. Now he knew how Lauren could lie. He pressed a call. The tone didn't last long. "What?" Stephanie answered sharply, coldly. "It's Alex," he said calmly. There was silence on the other end. Wow. Her voice was now cautious, even intrigued. "What a pleasant surprise. We need to talk about Lauren." "Oh, that sounds serious. What's wrong?" Alex took a deep breath, then a short laugh. Alex took his time. He wanted every word to settle in her mind, so she would have no doubts. "She cheated on me. For a long time. It was quiet on the other end. And do you know who her lover was? Eric." Stephanie was clearly holding her breath and didn't answer right away. "Well, the bitch." Alex grinned. That wasn't all. He told her everything. About how he'd caught them together. About her reaction. Not apology. Not shame, but annoyance. About her insolence, about the job she'd lost, about how she hadn't even tried to stop him. Stephanie listened in silence. But when Alex finished, there was real anger in her voice. "God, I hate her so much, she hissed. You have no idea how many years I've tried to open my eyes to that slut. Alex lowered his gaze, playing with the water bottle in his hands. Now's your chance to do it. Do you still have a general chat with her friends? Stephanie snorted. Of course I do. She kicked me out of there, but I stayed in the other group. Alex leaned forward. Then tell them everything. Every detail. A second of silence. Stephanie hummed. Oh, Alex, I knew you were a good guy, but I had no idea you could be cruel. I'm not cruel, he said calmly. I'm fair. Give me a minute and I'll do it now, she said and disconnected. Alex put the phone down. He knew what was about to happen. It didn't take more than 5 minutes before his phone started buzzing with new notifications. He opened the screen. Group. The real L. 38 new messages. He slowly scrolled up and saw the first message from Stephanie. All right, girls, it's time to open your eyes to our favorite Lauren. Are you ready? What followed was a flood of messages, screenshots, details. Stephanie wasn't just telling. She was exposing. One by one, Lauren's girlfriends wrote short, shocked responses. Is this true? She lied to us for so many years? I lent her money last year, and guess what? She never paid it back. God, she said Alex was toxic. And all this time she's been cheating on him. Then I got a text from Lauren herself. You're all sick. Don't believe a word of it. It's all lies. And then right after that, there was a flurry of messages. Do you have an explanation? You don't? Then don't tell us who to believe. You've been lying to us for years, Lauren. You're a piece of work. A couple seconds of silence. And then, Lauren left the chat room. Alex exhaled. Checkmate. A week after that night, Alex returned to the house for the last time. He opened the door as easily as before, but now the place was no longer his home. Lauren was sitting at the kitchen table, wearing an old robe, her hair disheveled, her eyes red. She looked like she hadn't slept a few nights in a row. Maybe she had. She didn't even look up when he walked in. Alex didn't say a word. He pulled a thick envelope from a folder and placed it on the table in front of her. Lauren slowly shifted her gaze to him, then to the envelope. It took her a few seconds to finally reach out and open it. She pulled out the papers and began to read. Her lips trembled. Alex crossed his arms over his chest, watching her, and said, These are the divorce papers. Everything's already signed. All that's left is your signature. She abruptly closed the folder and threw it on the table with force. You can't do that. You don't think I'm just going to sign it, do you? Alex tilted his head slightly. I do. Lauren jumped up from her chair, pushing it back so that it creaked on the tiles. You want to just throw everything away? All these years? Alex nodded slowly. You threw them away first when you cheated on me with Eric. Alex, her voice trailed off for the first time. It was a mistake. He grinned. A mistake? He nodded at the papers. Well, here goes. I'm correcting it. Lauren grabbed the folder again, squeezed it in her hands. You can't leave me with nothing, she whispered. I can, he replied calmly. I froze all the joint accounts. I closed the credit cards that were in my name. I put the money in a separate account. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out of her lips. You, she gasped. Alex stared at her, at the way her world was crumbling right before his eyes. She tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. And then she cried, quietly at first, then louder. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing, her shoulders shaking. Alex, please. Her voice was hoarse, choppy. You can't just leave like this. He looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just emptiness. Alex stood up, pushing the envelope toward her again. Sign it. Don't forget. Lauren looked up at him, her eyes wet with tears. If I don't, then I'll spend another couple months in court. But I'll still get what I want in the end. Her lips trembled, but she made no attempt to push the papers away. Alex, I'll make it up to you. He shook his head slowly. It's too late now. She dropped her head on her hands, bursting into tears again. Alex looked at her one last time. Then he turned around and walked towards the exit. At the threshold, he stopped. When you're done with this, leave the papers with the lawyer. She didn't answer. Alex didn't wait any longer. He walked out and closed the door behind him. For good this time. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.